was part of a South Asia study that we were trying to understand how the sanitation workers in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, and other countries are doing in the specific context of COVID. So when we started to do the study in India, we thought urban management center. So we discussed and we came together to do the study so that we can look at a pan-India format. So the details of the study anyway will be covered by colleagues when they present. What we actually looked at was that workers are frontline workers, but have they been recognized as the frontline workers? What kind of recognition are they getting within government, within society, and also among individual persons, population? How recognition are taken? Are they being seen frontline workers? That is one thing that we try to understand. And they continue to work in the risk. So I was talking that as frontline workers, have they been recognized? They continue taking all the risks. So have their risks and their kind of difficulties are sufficiently addressed by the government? And how are guidelines formed and implemented across various cities in the country? So this is what we were trying to address, and what needs to be done, what more needs to be done by government, state governments, national government, and also by the civil society. What all could be done in order to improve the situations of sanitation workers across the country? So colleagues from WaterAid, Kanika Singh, and a colleague from Urban Management Center, Meghna, will be taking us through this study details. And there were a number of colleagues from WaterAid and Urban Management Center and WaterAid were taking a lead to various sections of the study. So I thank all of them, and happy that all of you could join us for this sharing session. Thanks all. Over to you back, Manvita.
Thanks, Raman. Thanks for this introduction. Without much ado, I would request Kanika and Meghna to take us forward and share a screen. Meanwhile, you are sharing the screen instruction to the participants. You can please pose your questions on Q&A. And we would be happy to answer as we go along, if in text form, or then take the voice questions, answers from our panelists. Thank you. Kanika, Meghna, please make sure that you stick to the time. And since Sanjay sir will want to leave soon, so kindly stick to your time. I really want to hear him after the presentation. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks, Manvita. Hello all. So just a quick introduction. Sanitation workers are one of the frontline workers who have been continuing to work during the COVID pandemic, and they have been working at a very high risk, which is being multiplied in the absence of adequate PPE and other safety measures. And the social discrimination and stigma which they face further adds to their vulnerabilities. We had three objectives of our research study. One was to understand the various challenges related to health, safety, working conditions, and livelihoods which the sanitation workers are facing in the COVID context. The second is to understand various measures being undertaken by government, employers, etc., including the policy level measures like guidelines, advisories, etc. The third was to understand what are the gaps in these measures and to suggest what could be done to further support sanitation workers in this context. This was a rapid study, and we used mixed methods for this. So we conducted interviews of 95 sanitation workers and 12 ULB officials spread across 18 locations in 9 states and Union Territories of India. So the interviews conducted were a mix of telephonic and face-to-face interviews. These were done using a structured questionnaire. And apart from that, we also did a secondary review of various guidelines, advisories, media reports, etc. During the study, although we wanted to cover a comparable sample of all different categories of sanitation workers, but we faced some challenges due to the lockdown restrictions, especially in reaching out to the informal workers. And since majority of the interviews were done in the telephonic mode, we also faced some limitations in developing rapport with respondents, etc. So the map over here shows the number of cities and towns, and also the number of sanitation workers interviewed in each state. Now, if we look at a sample, we try to cover 9 categories of sanitation workers working across the sanitation value chain. So we covered sweepers, domestic waste collectors, waste pickers, and cleaners and waste collectors at hospitals and quarantine centers. And we also looked at the challenges of other workers like dry latrine workers, drain cleaners, cleaners of shared toilets, and desludgers and STP operators. So this slide shows the sample covered for each of the various categories of workers. Now coming to the findings, let us just have a quick look at the respondent profile first. 32% of our sample comprised of female workers and the rest were males. And if we look at the nature of employment, so contractual employment was highest overall and also across both male workers and female workers. But what is notable here to see is that the proportion of informal workers was higher among females as compared to males. So 30% of the female workers we interviewed were informal workers as compared to 7% among the male workers. If we look at the nature of employment across various work categories, so all the waste pickers and the dry latrine cleaners we interviewed were engaged in informal work, and most of the desludgers, FSTP operators, cleaners at hospitals, etc., they were mostly contractual with also some percentage of permanent staff and informal workers. And among the waste collectors at hospitals and quarantine facilities, most of them were permanent staff. We also looked at the insurance coverage. So 65% sanitation workers were not covered under any insurance scheme, and the other workers had some form of insurance like either health insurance, life insurance, or accidental death insurance. And something important here to see is that none of the informal workers we interviewed had any insurance cover. And also the insurance coverage among the male workers was almost double that of the female workers, which was just 22%. Now we look at the findings regarding the understanding of COVID prevention among the sanitation workers. So we tried to look at how training on COVID was being done by various urban local bodies. So we observed that because of the constraints of lockdown and also the physical distancing constraints, ULBs were adopting different approaches for training. So for example, some did training in small batches, some shared information during regular work interactions, and one of the ULBs in MP also prepared and circulated some videos on PPE use on WhatsApp. And the aspects most commonly covered during these training or information sharing were those of PPE use and hand washing or sanitization. But apart from that, the other aspects which are also critical in the COVID context, such as the reuse and disposal of PPE, waste handling and disposal methods, disinfection and physical distancing, these were not being covered by all the ULBs where we interviewed. Now, for COVID awareness among sanitation workers, we observed that more than 80% of our respondents were aware of at least 2 symptoms of COVID, such as cold, cough, etc. And majority were aware of at least 1 preventive measure. The most commonly mentioned measure amongst these was mask use, which was mentioned by 69% of respondents. and hand washing and physical distancing. Some respondents also mentioned some other measures which are actually which won't help in prevention of COVID, such as drinking hot water, living in a hot temperature place, taking herbal supplements, etc. 60% respondents were aware that if they get infected with COVID, they should be self-quarantine or in self-isolation. And the information sources for this information ranged from TV news to information provided from employers, word of mouth, etc. Some workers also mentioned getting such information from WhatsApp and Arogya Setu app. And one other important finding here is that only that 70% workers had access to a smartphone with internet service, which is something to be kept in mind if we are going for digital means of training and IEC. Now coming to different COVID-19 prevention measures at work. So first we looked at how various ULBs were implementing the guidelines issued at the national and state level. So most of the ULB officials we interviewed said that they were not aware of the national level guidelines, or they were not following those as such. But we got to know that some state had issued their own state level orders or advisories. So for example, the state of Telangana has issued special guidelines for sanitation workers, and the ULB officials we interviewed mentioned that they were also following some advisories by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the Health Ministry. Rajasthan state had issued an order for providing a cash support for the workers for purchasing PPE. And similarly, there were other orders in Odisha regarding paid leaves. However, the ULB official we interviewed was not aware of that particular order. Now looking at the access to personal protective equipment, we saw that 5% of the workers did not have access to any PPE. The rest had access to PPE, but the kind of equipment or safety gear available to them varied. So for example, 42% workers had masks and gloves, whereas if we see the people having mask, gloves, boots, jacket, etc. were only 5%. So the type of PPE was varying considerably among the sample. 80% workers we interviewed said that they had received the PPE from the employers, and this support from the employers was also higher among the permanent staff as compared to the contractual staff, wherein more contractual workers had to arrange the PPE on their own. And we also found that in some cases, the provision of PPE was not adequate because the workers had to arrange masks on their own after some of these were initially provided by their employers. And we also came across in one of the cities some challenges in provision and procurement of PPEs due to funding support. So because of lack of adequate funding, only 70 out of 300 workers could be provided with PPE kits. Another important thing here was that the specific PPE required as per the nature of work and the level of risk involved for the workers were not available to them in all cases. For example, if we look at the case of hospital sanitation workers, out of 15, 14 had PPE, but none of them had all types of PPEs. Although these are the workers who face the highest risk of COVID infection. So the lack of adequate PPE makes them vulnerable in this case. Other important thing was that the use of PPE was not regular due to challenges such as sweating, discomfort due to heat, suffocation, and inadequate size and fitting of the PPE, etc. So like one of our cases we interviewed was that of a drain cleaner who could not use the gloves he had because they didn't offer a good grip, whereas he was using the other gear provided to him like masks and boots, etc. So the use was not regular. We also looked at the hand hygiene practices. So 90% sanitation workers had access to either a soap or a hand sanitizer at work. 40% of the workers did not have access to a hand washing station with water and soap where they went for work. Now, most of these people who did not have access to the hand washing station were amongst those who were required to travel to different places in a single day. For example, sewer cleaners, sweepers, waste collectors, etc. We got to know that most workers were either washing their hands or sanitizing the hands at least twice during the workday, but they were not doing that regularly at all the times critical for COVID prevention, which is a concern. And lastly, 68% of cleaners of sewers, septic tanks, and drains who are actually allowed to, who are required to go inside the sewers or septic tanks, etc. for cleaning, they did not have access to bathing facilities at their places of work. We also looked at how and if any screening and testing was being done for the workers who were continuing to work. So during the interviews, all the ULB officials reported that thermal screening was conducted in their cities. However, less than 20% of the sanitation workers across our study locations said that a thermal screening or medical checkup had been conducted for them. And the frequency varied. For some people, it was just a one-time thermal screening, and for others, it was done regularly, like daily, weekly, etc. Most of these were organized by the employers themselves. So, and we also got to know that in Chhattisgarh, some of the workers who had symptoms, they were facilitated with COVID tests by the ULB. And in one of the cities in Telangana, weekly health checkups were being conducted, and the prescription was being recorded in their health diaries. Now I request Meghna to talk about the findings related to the impact of COVID on sanitation workers.
Thanks, Kanika. You'll have to stop your, okay, I'll try sharing my screen now. Is it visible? Is the screen again visible for everyone? So I think based on what we've heard, I'll quickly walk through specifics about what, how has COVID really impacted sanitation workers. We have heard and we've seen various news in, in various forums as well. And again, to reiterate that although sanitation workers have been equated to frontline workers, this is typically not a profession of their choice. You become a doctor because you want to, you become a police official because you want to, but nobody becomes, mostly, sanitation work is intergenerational, and it's not a profession of their choice. Having said that, there have been many illnesses and deaths due to COVID, even in sanitation workers. Also, most of us would have also heard about this AIIMS sanitation supervisor who died due to COVID-19. He was an official who was actually in charge of, overseeing all sanitation work inside the hospital. So there have been mixed reactions. Sanitation workers said that whereas citizens have begun to value what work we bring in, but this is also further, added stigma to their existing conditions. That citizens are now much more also scared that they carry a higher disease burden. So that's also been there. If we see overall working hours have increased for about 23% of sanitation workers, and mostly this has been not linked with any additional income. So it has either meant longer shifts for sanitation workers as doubling up of sanitation workers as guards of quarantine centers, or especially in hospital workers, we saw that because of the additional PPE waste that was coming in, there were a number of trips, were increased. Because of the lockdown, there was a huge mobility problem for most workers and sanitation workers because they continued to work were really hit hard. A third of these workers had to walk or depend on their personal, transport options. Many had walking, many were cycling. Whereas we see many cities and many states have such specific transport arrangements for doctors, we've not heard that from many such cities and states, except in Telangana, where we've said that there were transport arrangements, especially for sanitation workers, were made. Loss of livelihoods, what we've seen is that not much loss of livelihoods because this work really continued for most of them who were either permanent staff or those who were at least contractual engagement was there. The 13% workers who lost out of work were mainly because they were informal. And most of them were dry latrine workers who, because of the lockdown situation, were just not able to go and provide services. So both dry latrine workers as well as waste pickers. This was the category that was really hard hit. Again, a third of sanitation workers also reported reduced incomes. So the ones that were permanent, of course, no major issues there. But they also saw in some places they have said that there were delayed payments as well. But majority of them said that there was a lot of delayed in payments and there was a lot of reduction in payments as well that was happening. Surprisingly, when we are saying that at least sanitation workers who are from the most vulnerable sections of our society, a third were not covered under even the PDS systems, and so they had to face a lot of troubles even meeting day-to-day grocery essential requirements. Having said that, the challenges for women sanitation workers was much more. Public toilets were shut down, were closed, and hence many women workers said that even during menstruation, we really had trouble, coping up. How would we, even ensure our own hygiene? Also, a lot of these, because of the whole absence of any childcare support or any creches or Anganwadi support for sanitation workers, many of them typically would carry their children along when they went for work. But during lockdown, during COVID, they were forced to leave children home alone, and that was something that they have really resonated across the women sanitation workers. One of them also said that I really don't know whether I should continue breastfeeding my child. So she was really lost and she was asking us what to do. So clearly and asked for much more training, much more information and much more support to be vetted out to sanitation workers. If you look at the across the states and across cities, of what kind of support really came for sanitation workers. So for Telangana really stands out. So Telangana announced 5,000 to 7,500 rupees monthly incentive for all sanitation workers deployed in all cities. Also in few ULBs in Madhya Pradesh, Odisha and Gujarat, there was ration support and cash assistance also which was given. Also with help of a lot of other CSR organizations like Samhita, who helped out in bringing CSR monies for direct cash support for a lot of sanitation workers across these states. I'll now jump to recommendations, and we all know that these are critical issues and these are long overdue. We know that these are all, we've been talking about these changes for many years. And however, this whole issue has just gotten amplified and magnified due to COVID-19, and hence can we use this COVID-19 as an opportunity to set this right and make sure that we have the right measures, both at occupational health and safety measures, financial, social safety net, and the whole citizens awareness built into for ensuring that sanitation work becomes safer and becomes dignified. All of our recommendations we have tried to bifurcate as long-term measures, which really need to be done any which ways. But there are some things which are immediate in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. These need to be done on a real urgent basis. The first itself, we heard Kanika talk about the lack of appropriate PPEs. We saw that PPEs were there, but very few had access to all PPEs that a sanitation worker should have. There are issues of proper sizes, quality, and even if there are PPEs, they are mostly given one time. So what is that frequency at which PPEs need to be given? And even if they are given, then are we training the sanitation workers adequately to tell them about how to use them, how important it is for them to use, and also how to disinfect the PPEs before they are used again. The second important aspect is functional hand washing and bathing facilities at work sites. Many sanitation workers said that we do not have even changing rooms where we can get into wash ourselves before we go home. And hence they were very worried about taking the infection back home as well. So we need bathing facilities, hand washing facilities, changing rooms for sanitation workers. The whole aspect about thermal screening, regular health checkups. We saw that it has happened, but again, it has happened in some places and sometimes. It has to happen at a regularity which happens daily, and it also includes other comorbidity factors as well, checking of blood sugar, respiratory functions, etc. Especially for hospital sanitation workers, considering that they are really at a direct, very high risk, they should be ensured all safety measures which are at par with health and frontline staff of the medical staff. The long-term measures, of course, I mean, we've been talking about this. We need to talk about complete mechanization of sanitation work. We cannot have sanitation workers enter drains and septic tanks for desludging and drain cleaning. And related to the question of PPEs, there needs to be a lot of research on design on comfortable PPEs, which are also gender friendly. Women also need to be comfortable wearing the kind of PPEs that are available in the market. We are, as we speak, trying out such a study with Mathisa's help in Odisha, in Bhubaneswar, and trying out and testing what kind of PPEs and what is the sanitation workers' response to that. Talking about social and financial protection, this is something that is, I mean, you have to talk about health insurance and life and health insurance for all sanitation workers, irrespective of their engagement modalities. So it's not that only permanent workers get X or Y benefits. The contracts that a city or a state does, so even subcontract employees should be eligible for such support. All other kinds of social safety nets, such as access to education, housing, PDS, all of these are really critical, very important. So these are, again, we've been talking about these for many, many years. So system strengthening and capacity building, we have to talk about this whole training of sanitation workers, and we need to do it really innovatively. Can there be digital methods of doing it? Can there be methods of reaching out to more sanitation worker groups? And how can that be done? Really needs to be examined. We saw that 70% of sanitation workers had access to smartphone with a digital with internet access. Can that be a platform? Can that digital trainings happen? Even similarly, capacity building of ULB officials, and more than the technical capacity building, there's a need for sensitization of officials and at large, of looking at sanitation workers, which are much more humane approach. Long-term measures, so there's a bundle of things that are happening. There's a lot of work under NULM that's happening of bringing sanitation workers on the SHG platform, where they can be layering of all these financial and safety nets that can be then easily available for sanitation workers. There's a lot of help from NSKFDC that goes out to sanitation workers. Again, for skilling also, the skilling ecosystem under NSDC and the sector councils are there, but how can then we make it easier for our sanitation workers to upskill themselves, not only on technical, but also on soft skills, improve their negotiation skills. All of that needs to happen. A critical aspect of this is also to offer counseling for sanitation workers, to offer them any alternate livelihoods if they so want to pursue. The last bit of this is about enabling environment. 15 Finance Commission has talked about 4,800 odd crores this year allocated for solid waste management and sanitation alone. Can that monies be used by our cities and by our states to ensure that sanitation work gets at least safer? We keep talking about building infrastructure and systems, but can we also allocate certain monies for ensuring safety for sanitation work? The second largest thing is the contracts management, and that most ULBs are now doing work through subcontracts and contracts. So all of those flow down clauses of ensuring safety and of sanitation work needs to be mentioned in the contracts as well, and then that monitoring. So ULBs, can we have model contracts which ensure all of this happens, and then the monitoring of that, the work is happening in the way written in the contracts, and SOPs can happen. The biggest piece around enabling environment is also citizens awareness and sensitivity. So mass IC campaign for citizens awareness that we also treat sanitation workers with the same respect that we treat doctors and police, as we've seen that in during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll just end with this, but a lot needs to be done on an urgent basis. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Meghna and Kanika. Both of you have really led the study, and we're very happy to have the study discussed here. I would, many congratulations. I'm sure there are many questions from the audience as well. Before we get into questions, I would really request Dr. Mathivathanan to talk about the initiatives he has taken in Odisha. And Odisha has been a champion, and due to Mr. Mathivathanan's involvement as a Principal Secretary of Urban Development Department, the state has done very dedicated work for sanitation workers. They're coming out with many reforms, and we would really like to hear from Mr. Mathivathanan now. Just a piece of information, JS Sanjay Kumar will be joining back. He had to leave, as he had mentioned before we started, but our presentation got a bit delayed. He'll join us back at 4 o'clock, so I would request, and we'll give him the notes, what our speakers speak. So over to you, Mathi sir.
Pamela is there? Yeah.
Pamela is also there, yeah. Pamela ma'am, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The UMC for having me here as one of the panelists. Most delighted to share my my perspective, like as we are working on the ground and see things up front and close every day. So should I start with a small video clipping, or is time limited?
If it's a small clip, sure, ma'am.
It's a 40-second thing. I can start. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please,
so the
go
very
ahead.
objective of showing that 40-second clipping was, if you observed, first is about the occupational hazard when they are going for their night shift, so-called night shift when they're sweeping. So we can't stop traffic, and they have to carry on their works, because they also are not willing to work on odd hours when there is no traffic. That is first point. Second point, I wanted to show a very typical thing about Warangal, where all the women sweepers use both their hands deftly for sweeping with both brooms in two hands. Whereas if you observe the male workers, they just do it with one hand with a long broom. So I just wanted to bring this typical thing out, saying that even in sanitation, women faced double-edged vulnerability every time, and their efficiency, despite we always say the fairer sex and all, in fact they do double the work. That's all I wanted to show out in the video. So just a 18 slide photo grid, that's all I have for all of you, because I think all of you have done immense research, and there is no more enlightenment that I can bring to the table. But like you can see, I start with my first slide here. So this is the new set of PPE, the gloves and the caps that we gave to our workers. So first, what I observed about gloves, like we already discussed, is the nitrile gloves, which are supposed to be replaced every other day. First of all, there is a delay in reaching to the correct beneficiary from the, like we have a hierarchy: sanitary workers, then we have supervising sanitary javans, then we have sanitary inspectors, and then we have overall the municipal health officer, MBBS doctor, who looks after the overall process of sanitation. But by the time the PPEs or the basic gloves, masks, or anything as such reach the sanitary workers, the timelines are not being adhered to, basically. So that is what that is one aspect which I wanted to bring out. Second photograph is, this is at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. So you can again see a lady worker who is doing the job, and there are two guys who are on the truck trying to take off the sanitation load. Third slide, this is about, again, you can observe the two brooms in her hand. She's doing night sweeping thing, night duty, basically. So first, this fourth slide is very important. I want to bring this slide out because we always talk about the positive side of the story, but I think we should also introspect many a times and like be self-critical sometimes. This is an adverse news which was published regarding our urban malaria staff who got severe rashes because of sodium hypochlorite spraying through handheld devices. And the second picture you see is about women who are handling waste. The lady on the left, she has gloves, but she is not wearing masks. The lady on the right, she has no gloves, and she has a mask which is brought down under her chin. So my point here about the first picture, talking about the urban malaria staff, is that when they got these rashes, they very well had the jackets, they very well had a raincoat also, because we were very scared about the leakage. They had proper gloves, and they had very good quality goggles that we had given them, because they will be dealing with toxic chemicals. But despite everything, we also have to understand that they work in a very sultry, humid and hot condition, and they are not willing to, I mean, you see, at the end of the day, it's always choose, I mean, a selection between comfort versus safety. So they sometimes, I mean, as like any human being will do, they'll definitely choose comfort, and this is what results when they choose comfort, temporary comfort over safety. So we got all of them treated in hospital. We gave them the medicines and everything. It all got cured, but the scars, it will remain with us for a lifetime, because I can't forget what I have seen. So second picture, what I wanted to show is these two ladies. It is not again about availability of PPEs or distribution or problem at source or problem at the forward linkages or everything. It is basically a problem of usage. Many a times during my field inspections, when I go to the places where they stay themselves, because most of the times we have a 3,000 odd sanitary worker workforce, so where they are basically locally sourced. So when you go and they tell them that, madam, I stay here, when I go to their houses or their neighborhoods, it is mostly a notified or a non-notified slum, nothing beyond that. So what I observe is, how can they believe that their work is worthy, because they live in stench and they live in such dirty environments? How can someone do something which they don't believe in? If we tell them that you need to clean a drain and they live inside a drain, how can we convince them to work for something which they themselves are not able to visualize as a need or a safety or as a health concern? So howsoever how many IEC campaigns we may do, unless their condition is brought as at par, especially in terms of dignity of labor or of health, hygiene and habitation, it's very difficult to push the point of sanitation to the very to the weakest link of the chain where it needs to be strengthened. So the second point is, the first picture I showed is, despite the presence of these PPEs that we had given them from head to toe, which covers them, including a face shield, and this is the handheld sprayer that which you can see. And the second picture is of the lady and the guy. This is a very candid picture. We as a team understood that despite the safety aspects associated with the disposable glove, that you use it today and throw it tomorrow and it's safer, but still it doesn't reach them on time, and what's the use? So we gave them this time gloves, and very high quality gloves, which are different for sweeping and which are different for the desludging and desilting of drains. So the quality is different, and it's a very high quality thing which they can use for 3 months, and it's washable and reusable. And you can see them very smiling. We got them very good summer caps, so they are very, very happy, you can see. So they were so happy, in fact, that you can see this is a picture of a night sweeping, that they were unwilling to remove the caps, summer caps and the summer hats, even in the night. So this is the point I wanted to push through. You walk 10 miles for them, they'll walk the 90 or other for you. So that's what I wanted to put through. So, and you can see in the divider, in the central median, we have a lollipop with an IEC material. It's very faint out there, but still, I hope it's visible. Is it visible? Is it visible?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
So what we did was no trade, no marketing activities were happening. So we removed every other advertisement or trade related, commerce related poster out from the city, and we only put what sanitary workers or general public need to do in thousands of dividers and thousands of central median lollipops and huge banners and hoardings, because we cannot push the point of IEC enough unless they see it and hear it with their own eyes and ears. And also we have 163 Swachh autos which do the door-to-door garbage collection. So those autos also used to play the precautions and everything in a local language, that is Telugu here, so that they themselves, if not public is made aware, at least it is brought to their own use. So this is again another picture where you see they have gumboots and all. But again, I would like to reiterate that this is an idealistic scenario. When they, in fact, when they are going inside the drain, sometimes when they have to, howsoever we may say that manual scavenging or manual desilting or desludging never happens, it happens. We have to admit it at the end of the day. So when they in fact go inside the drains, what I have observed is the water gets inside their boots, and they in fact remove it and go inside the drains. In fact, they remove every sort of PPE, the helmets, the masks, every sort of PPE, and they go inside the drain. So like we already discussed, it's always a trade-off between comfort or safety, hygiene, and everything else. So this is like you can see, we have a couple of containment zones charted out on the maps. So we told them these are no movement zones, and we used to supply the households, all the households in these areas with vegetables, with daily essential, and the garbage from those households used to be treated as biomedical waste as per Government of India and Government of Telangana guidelines. So you can can see that these waste, even the daily garbage used to be collected in yellow bags. It used to be disinfected by our municipal staff, and it used to be handed over to a dedicated agency for incineration. And this is our sanitation staff who is doing a door delivery of vegetables and daily essentials on a payment basis. So this is again an idealistic scenario. 2 hours into the job, when it will be very hot and sultry, they would remove the headgear, the gloves, the jackets, and you'd only see them wearing a mask. Sometimes the mask will be hanging under their chin. So like you can see, this is our army. Here, this I assume is a scene where we are distributing them soaps, sanitizers, and masks. Again, we observe that despite N95 masks and surgical masks, which are safer for use, they're not using it because it's very humid, and they prefer using a towel or a kerchief. So we also stitched lakhs of cotton masks, 3-ply cotton masks, with our self-help groups, and we distributed 2 or 3 numbers to each sanitary workers, and not just to each sanitary workers. In fact, we distributed 2 masks each to every 3 lakh household, every household in the 3 lakh household that we have in Warangal city. So again, from Ramana Garu, who is a very active member of our UMC here, she suggested that we give sanitary pads to 1 packet each to our women workforce, sanitary workforce, and we immediately thought this is a really good idea. Again, this sanitary pad is manufactured by our very own self-help group women. So we distribute a packet each to each woman in our sanitary workforce every month. So again, as per the instructions of our Honorable Minister KTR sir, so we go for a health screening every Thursday. And in fact, going for an ad hoc health screening, we have given them each 1 notebook with all the parameters, their family details, their basic somatic, parameters. So we go for a thermal screening, the BP, the pulse. We check the oxygen levels through a pulse oximeter, and all sorts of things. But that is a very common thing which all ULBs do. What we have done here in Warangal is we found that see, you may test for COVID today and you turn out negative tomorrow, but still the apprehensions of whether you have the symptoms or not always looms large. So what we thought is, like, in fact they end up spending a huge on consultation. So we went for teleconsultation rather than telemedicine. We tagged them, like we did not go for health camps. We fixed the cohort of the sanitary workers to 1 urban PHC, UPHC, and there the medical staff and the paramedical staff would look after these people, and they would, in fact, if they turn out every Thursday, they would share a common bond. So, and in fact, that familiarity would help them to share numbers, and we gave them numbers of the medical and paramedical staff, and they would just call and ask about whether COVID symptoms or anything as such. So the teleconsultation would happen properly. So this is a scene where of a Thursday health camp in a UPHC. This is the kind of health card we give them. It's a basically this is a 20-page booklet, and we, with very basic vector images, we have tried to show what all precautions sanitary workers should do. This is again a typical scene of our free meal center. This is under the Hare Krishna Mission Foundation. So we ran 10 Annapurna free meal center, and for general public. In that also we used to give around 3,000 free lunches to our sanitary workers. You can see on the right side, and we spent nearly 1.5 crores during the whole thing, because during COVID times, when there was lockdown, commutation and food and everything else was very difficult to come by. Also, of course, we provided free food to everyone, but talking about commutation, we only could provide 3 buses carrying 150 people, 150 odd people out of the 3,000 odd workforce, because again, permits and everything were very difficult to come by. I actually regret having done less in terms of commutation. So as you can see in this picture, in center is Dr. Raji Reddy. He is our municipal and health officer, and 3,000 odd workforce report to him on a daily basis. This is the kind of person he is, and this is the kind of work he does on a daily basis. And so I just wanted to bring this slide out, and I also want to bring one point out that in fact, I don't know whether it is applicable to other ULBs or not, but in Warangal, when I used to go and when we used to speak to our municipal workers, we found them more happy, more content during COVID rather than during regular days, because Telangana government was giving them 5,000 rupees per month, and again the benefits of a white ration card of 12 kgs ration. So there was no pay cut. In fact, all of us, all the other ULB members took a 50% pay cut, but for municipal staff it was 100% payment, and we gave them 5,000 rupees incentive. Not just the financial part, they used to receive, public used to recognize their services as a very, very important and essential service, and they used to felicitate them, shower with them with flower petals, and they used to, give them free food and everything. So this is, their morale was very high during COVID actually. In fact, if you can see this is a very very heartwarming picture. You see this teddy bear was thrown away in a garbage bin. So one of those workers, what they did is they put a mask on the teddy bear. Again, the mask was also thrown away in garbage, and they wrote on their own with whatever knowledge they had, Corona vachinadi mask veyali. So they have written in Telugu that the Corona has come, you have to put on your masks. And the interesting part is nobody has asked them to do all these things. They had done it out of their own interest, and all of them are outsourcing workers. So point is, during COVID times, our people have in fact gone way beyond their job chart to deliver what a city needs. So they, in fact, like we used to call them our Swachhata saviors, sanitation saviors. So this, you can see a very small kid handing over some ration to our sanitation worker, and this is again old man very happy that he has received a new jacket and a cap and everything. So I just wanted to, I mentioned it only if it lasts, because see, COVID has come and COVID will go, but the kind of respect and the dignity of labor they witnessed, I think this is this is the first time, and I think it should not be once in a lifetime. It should continue as such. So other than that, we are also planning for uniforms, almost like 30 lakhs that we are spending for this 3,000 workforce, 2 sets of uniforms, because what we observed is, despite this disposable and removable PPs, they remove only the PPs when they go home. They don't change clothes. So if we make a uniform mandatory, so they'll come wearing a uniform, and they'll be forced to remove the uniform when they go home. At least that will take care of a little bit of sanitation and hygiene aspects as such. So and also, I already mentioned, whenever we give them very high grade gumboots and all, they wear it once, and in fact when they go inside the drains, they remove it. So now we are planning for alternate shoes which are waterproof and lightweight, so that at least they have something on their feet when they go inside the drains, or when they actually do the job. So in fact, during the COVID time, we also realized their importance personally, and we started a wall of honor, and we observed the psychological difference in the mindset of an individual. What we did was we collected very heartwarming pictures of people doing sanitation, our sanitation workers doing their job, and we displayed it on a big screen in our head office of GWMC. And we selected 15 people among sanitation workers as best employees, and we started a wall of honor, giving them a 500 rupees cash incentive each. So this exercise we do every fortnightly ever since March, and I have observed that when the same public looks at people doing the sanitation job on the ground, they just don't pay heed to it because it's a routine part. But when they see those pictures reflecting on the screen, they actually, open up their thoughts and minds and think about what workers go through on a daily basis.
Yeah, correct.
Correct. So I guess I'm running out of time. So this is all I wanted to bring through. Thank you so much.
No, Pamela ma'am, excellent work and kind of initiatives that Warangal has done. It's very, very important, and many of the cities would be learning from this. Ma'am, you have a few questions, but I would take it at the end. It's in the Q&A section. There are 2-3 questions for you, so you might want to read and respond, or at the end of it, we can read out to you and you can respond. Now I'll request Madam Amarjit Kaur. She is the General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress. I would really invite her to talk about her perspective based on her experience of so many years working with various sections of society, and especially the marginalized and the vulnerable. So there is a understanding from your perspective as well. Ma'am, thank you very much. Kindly over to you.
Thank you, Manita. First of all, I would like to thank those who have done the study, and all 3 of them who presented report. This has been a very good study which they have done, and they have come out with very good recommendations also. Secondly, because limited time is there, others will speak and question answers have also to be there. So I would like to keep myself brief and limited in making remarks. It was interesting to listen to Pamela Sarpati, young IAS officer, very energetic the way she has taken initiatives and the things which have been done in Warangal. That is encouraging, but that's not the scenario in most of the places. This study itself tells what is presented before us are the ground reality at most of the places. But definitely we would, I agree with you that it is not a question of giving these facilities during COVID-19 time. It is how it should be always post-COVID also. I agree with you. And that's where I want to begin with these 3 remarks. First of all, whole of society, rural or urban, whichever economic group, social group or religious group or geographical area or lingual group we belong to, this need of cleanliness, of sanitation, of waste disposal, all what composes what we are discussing about today. And the study reflected all those workers inside hospital or outside hospital, on our streets or roads or drains or sewage system. This is a permanent kind of work. It is not something seasonal. All of us need it. As a society, we need it. Today we need it, yesterday we need it, and in future we will be needing it more. Because environment degradation and pollution and ecological disturbances have caused so many havocs in the lives of our people, not only human beings, our animal life, the bird life, all lives. It has created havoc, and we have been seeing natural disasters coming one after another. And similarly, several viruses we faced in last 3 decades, but this particular virus is more dangerous. Up till now, we do not know because the vaccine hasn't come out. So already we have 4 kinds of coronas in India already. This is the 5th new corona virus named as COVID-19. Because the work of these people into this whole cleanliness process and handling sanitation and sewerage and disposals, etc., everything, this work is going to be much more important, and the workforce here needs to be taken care of. They are most vulnerable, and you see the situation. This study also tells they are most vulnerable. Among the front rank workers, those who are facing the problems, they are among the most vulnerable. That's my first submission. So why to continue as contract workers, casual or daily workers? All the study which is reflected just now, it has come through study, but that is our experience at the ground level every day when we are handling their unions. And the unionization of these workers is not something new. In 1920s, the unionizations of municipal workers, scavengers, sewage workers, all that started happening in India. It's not a new thing. Pre-independent India, then post-independent India, and recently before this lockdown happened in month of February, in the beginning we were having our All India conference of these local body, these municipal workers union, which includes all kinds of municipal workers, but these sanitation workers were one of the part of that, and we discussed in detail all these problems. So all these problems were existing, and COVID-19 perpetuated it. All the occupational safety health measures are there on the paper, but implementation is not happening. When Pamela was telling that why they should not wear proper shoes and masks and everything when they go to the main hall for cleanliness, this is there in law, but it is never implemented. And of course, we know some places where we have unions and we force it should be implemented. Then our workers tell us, "Itna bhari juta hai, hum घुसे कैसे? इतना भारी हाथ का है, कैसे झुके? हमारा ये ऊपर का इतना भारी है कि हम घुस नहीं सकते, होल बहुत छोटा है, वो अंदर रह जाएगा." So there has no provision is made, and if some provision is made somewhere, the things are in a way they can't use it. Then we cannot blame them. जो उनको दिया था वो use क्यों नहीं कर रहे? That's not the issue. So whole issue is looking at them only some kind of a seasonal work is no good. Number one, giving them safety equipments was law which was never implemented. At least COVID-19 is providing a situation when everybody's woes and difficulties, their working conditions, indecent or wherever decent, everything is getting exposed. So COVID-19 is showing the real face of working places of our workforce in this country, in mines or in sanitation or other places. Third thing is that when these recommendations which were being given by those who have done the study, the presentation which they made, they in the long-term recommendations which they are making, I am just adding into that. Some remarks which I made also includes the long-term thing. Dignity of this work needs to be, you see, that there one has to work about. Dignity of work, and society to accept that they are integral part of their life, and they have to accept them and respect them, facilitate them and help them, encourage them and give them knowledge. It's necessary. When the slide was being shown, how many people knew about COVID-19, what precautions and what and all, what I could understand. They got all the information from TV or from video somewhere, WhatsApp or somewhere, but none of them responded that there was a concerted effort, door to door, to inform the citizens what is COVID-19, how to defend yourself, what are the measures, how you should handle. They are the front rank fighters. If they could not be covered fully, then you can understand the fate of other citizens. So there has been a lack. So a continuous a system of informing citizens and those who are in particular workplaces, them specially of their work profile and all, and the precautions. It is a long-term, continuous process which will have to be. It should not begin with COVID-19 and it should not end with COVID-19. Because today we have COVID-19, we do not know with greed the way we are playing with the environment and ecology, the way the powerful governments in the world are not at all bothered about any kind of environment commitments. We do not know what kind of another virus will be there for the people to face, and how humanity will once again suffer. So we need to learn lessons during COVID-19, and we have to carry it forward. Another thing, recommendation for social security has come. It is very, very necessary step. immediate also and a long-term measure also. Social security needs of there to be taken care of, apart from their occupational safety health, on which the study also told, and Pamela's presentation was also indicating that. The question of nutrition is very important. I can understand if in Warangal the rations were being given, and a limited few other municipalities, I can look at some districts. Vast majority of people, one of the study, your presentation showed only 5% of those who are having among these workers told that they could get rations. Don't we think nutrition is a very big issue? Don't we think we are talking the world over about good immunity should be there if you have to fight back any disease? How that immunity will come? The health is a serious issue, nutrition is a serious issue. Why can't there be universal PDS? Why can't public distribution system, instead of based on PDS, APL and all those occupations and professions you know are the people with the minimum wages, or even less than that because they are on contract basis, everybody to be covered under PDS. Middle classes don't go and stand in the queue to take rations. Only during COVID-19, some of them also faced a hit because they lost their jobs. But there has to be coverage of all these, all sanitation workers to be permanently having this facility of public distribution system. Not only kabhi dal de diya, kabhi keval gehu de diya, kabhi keval chawal de diya. No, it should be complete with edible oil, with dal and chawal, rice or whatever are they, even including soap. Why can't we give them? Why can't we give them? So that kind of a system, a long-term system, which we have to work during COVID and then post-COVID, all these workers need to be covered under that. And some little bit thing was said in one of the slides, but what I want to say is that India talks of we are great in digital, we are great in technology, we are importing other technologies. The technological element has to be made an input element in whole of this work of these sanitation workers. Technology introduction should be heavy. I know a few machines were bought to clean these sewerages, and in different states there were different policies. Within state, in different districts it happened. Then some of the machines were allowed to rotten and to just become junk. That should not be there. We need to have modernization. We need to have technology inputs. We need to have measures where this work becomes dignified, as well as it becomes a little easier for them. And increasing of budget is another, not only during COVID. Many people did say that they did not get wages, and I know many people who have never done this sanitation work because they lost the jobs. They entered into sanitation work. I was studying from reports with my Bombay people sent, or Pune people sent, and some other cities they sent, even from Chennai, that many of those who don't have experience, but they lost the jobs and they wanted something, and they went and started doing the sanitation work without experience. They were finding it difficult, but they were trying to do it. So we have to understand that COVID-19 brought many problems. It exposed all those problems also, but definitely it gives us an opportunity now to see to it that those weaknesses could be removed. And that's why I would say that unionization should be encouraged. They feel more comfortable. They can share with each other. They can stand with each other. They know somebody is there to take care of their problems. So unionization needs to be covered. Pamela covered the gender question in a very nice way, but then I want to tell her, we fought a case of our contract worker who was a Safai Karamchari with municipal workers, and our union is very strong there. She was denied maternity benefit. So we had to fight at the lower court, then high court, then up to Supreme Court. For 20 years we fought the case and got justice from there, that when you have a contract system, and she is there for years working only on contract. How can you deny maternity benefit to her? And all those who are into contract, into that regular kind of a job, and they are continuously working over there, you cannot deny. So this maternity benefit is a serious issue, not only their dress issue, and it's good that you are giving sanitary pads to them, that safety measures are there, and then you are talking of giving pads to them, sanitary pads also. All these things taking into that whole gender component. Because of limited time, I'm trying to give only a few examples. So that was the case we won. But is it being implemented even after we won over from Supreme Court? It is not. Let me tell you frankly. Without unions and women having some place to go and tell ki mere liye lado tum, nothing happens for them. Why they should need once again going to court and once again running one office to another? Once the law decision came from Supreme Court, needs to be implemented by all authorities, irrespective which place, which state, which district they belong to. But that doesn't happen. Our consciousness comes for a little time of some people, and then at that time we will talk big, but we will not make it as a normal channel where everything should be in place, that the people have not to run pillar to post. In the meanwhile also with this uniforms she talked. I think it is very good idea. That needs to be recommendation from this webinar. Why only during COVID they will have those BPEs or those coats? Why that should not be a normal all over India? So that they know if they have two dresses, they should clean it every day. And what is this study showing? Only a very little percentage had a facility of taking bath. Now you imagine, only 2 times in a day washing hands. Some not even doing that, and contract workers out of that. And then this study which is presented shows hardly 30% are washing themselves. What are we doing? We reach our home from our workplace and immediately, first of all, we take bath, then only we interact with other members of the family. And if they don't have those facilities, they COVID or no COVID, they every day need it, because they interact with so much bacteria and so many types of viruses. It has to be normal course. So drinking water is a serious issue for them. So there are some services which state has to take the responsibility and not to run away. And that is clean drinking water, water available for bathing and other things, complete ration system to be given. In situations of these crises, some cash to be given to them. It's only, I hear that Telangana gave 5,000 rupees to them, as Pamela was telling, but no other places they were given. Even on Jan Dhan, what is this study showing? The study is telling only 5% got Jan Dhan out of all total who were interviewed. So you can understand, out of 20 crore, we have been telling 50% their accounts were deactivated. And now you talk to these who are not many of them even on Jan Dhan, how they will get. So cash transfer was very, very important issue. Today I received the delegation in the hospital. It is capital city. In capital city, from a hospital, Safai Karamchari is coming to my office and telling for last 3 months they haven't got a single pie from the hospital. And you can imagine, they are on starvation situation. Right. So you don't give them other equipments, you don't feed them, you don't give them cash. In such a situation, how these workers are to survive? And that's why I would like to conclude, because I know time is running out.
I would like to take questions. Yeah, sure, go ahead, Min. Yeah, we'll have questions.
Only thing is that these are major lapses which have been brought about, where we are saying even water and soap is available only to 40%, and those who are going into drains and facilities that they are very, very dangerous. This study is bringing out with the kind of reports. So this testing and safety equipment, it continues to be issue, and testing is a quite serious. Less than 20% sanitation workers told that they were tested. So testing in this COVID-19 is an immediate issue. I'm adding into that immediate issue. Then gender gap issue is immediate also and long-term issue also. And this cash is immediate also and the long-term also. Social security is immediate also and long-term also. Transportation is a serious issue, I should tell you, for these workers to come to their workplaces. When Pamela talked about this woman is working at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, how they are arriving, if I ask. I have seen women sleeping after 12 o'clock on the pavements in many of the cities because they have to get up at 4 a.m. and then clean the roads. And the families come and leave them at that. And women sleeping outside on the pavements is not a safe thing for them. So are we talking in terms of that? And the last point which I want to make is child care services. This study also tells how they leave their children there. Some bring along with them, but most of them, because it is a work of cleanliness, they keep at home or tell their neighbors or lock from outside. Those things are there. I would here recommend there has to be ICDS scheme to be made as a full day scheme. And ICDS scheme should work in rural and urban area, covering fully all our working women in these kinds of activities who are in the unorganized sector, and even these kinds of precarious job, even though sector is organized, but there is contract work or daily basis work, their children should be having a safe place. Why ICDS should work for 4 hours, 5 hours? On paper, they work for 8 hours or more than that. On paper it is. Why don't you officially make it 8 hour or 9 hour? Make them workers and not a volunteers, and those become places for these women, agriculture women or construction women, all those precarious conditions where women are working, their children to be there in the safe places ICDS center, so that after work they go pick up their children and they can take home. So there lot many recommendations can be brought out of this study also, and I would definitely say COVID-19 has provided us opportunity that we can address these issues and many more issues maybe other panelists will be having, or in the question answer session maybe something else we will be able to do.
Excellent.
Thank you, Manvita.
Your experience. Yeah, excellent presentation on the basis of your experience and also what the study brought out. You've really caught many aspects which the team has looked into it, but we would also take suggestions and expand our understanding when it comes to certain aspects which you drew our attention to. Warangal is an outlier. You're very right. I mean, because Pamela ma'am is there, and Warangal has also done a lot of work in solid waste management for many years, and UMC had made a film also on Warangal's experience earlier. So it's an outlier city, but many other cities require a lot of support from their officers and their team. Pamela ma'am, you have a few questions in the Q&A. And I guess you have answered, but let me have a few of the Q&A which have not been answered, and if others can also pitch in, because keeping pace with the questions is tough sometimes. I hope I don't miss it. Is a question to Pamela ma'am, is the question about what kind of gears you had given, and what was the response of the workers when they received. And you said they loved it, but was it used? How could you encourage them to use it on daily basis?
Yeah. Hi, Manvita. Jay, so
yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead, please.
We gave them basic PPEs, for example, disposable full body suits. Then we gave them gloves. First, initially we gave them single-use nitrile gloves. Then after 3 weeks, we gave them this reusable, good quality gloves which last for 3 months. So we saw that they loved the second one better, and we gave them one set of new jackets, and we gave them goggles. Also, we gave them masks, disposable masks, so that like they can use daily. Disposable masks. So daily, and also we gave them reusable washable cloth masks also. This was basic PPE which was necessary for the work scenario, but since it was summer, we gave them caps, summer caps with the GWMC insignia embroidered on it. So in fact this was a non-essential item, but they loved it better than the PPEs. So they also requested that we need some uniform. So initially, like we thought whether uniform is necessary or not, but we came to realize that 6 years back they had received some very dull colored sari or bodysuit as a uniform, which they did not like wearing to work. So now after discussing with them, so we got them very bright colored handloom saris. So they are in the process of being handed over, two sets each to all the ladies and the gentlemen out there. So
right, excellent.
Also, we have for the yes. Initially we had given them one set of shoes. Of course, in this also women had not received anything. Only male workers who go for drain desludging and all those things, they had received knee length gumboots, but again, like I said, it was very uncomfortable for them to use. So this time we have procured half shoes which are like washable and lightweight, so that at least and it's also unisex. So all the ladies and all the male workers will receive them.
Right. Thanks. There was also a question for both, I think, Pamela ji and Amarjit ji, is about the permanent and contractual workers. All the benefits which are given are for permanent workers only, or also for contractual? Because in many other cities, some of the workers are given outsourced work, and then their contractors are written in the contract that you have to provide, but they don't provide. So how is the city handling part? And Amarjit ji can talk about how the union can handle their part. Can both of you respond to that? Pamela ji?
Yeah.
First.
See, out of the 3,000 odd workforce that we have, only 220 or 230 are government workers who are also very aged. And in fact, we observe that their children or their spouses or their relatives work on behalf of them. So that is one part, very small, negligent part. The others are all outsourced. So in fact, our government had given strict guidelines not differentiating between outsourced and government workers. In fact, both of them receive 5,000 rupees on par with each other. And in fact, during this exercise, we also found out that certain people who, despite having no health condition or bodily ailment, engage Benami workers on their behalf. They receive a salary from government of around 60,000, but they give only 6,000 odd rupees for a alternate worker. In fact, I mean, government regular workforce turned out to be, exploitative in this sense. So since predominantly our workforce was 2,900 odd people all outsourcing, so we could roll out all the benefits equitably to all of them. Also from UMC, we received the support which we gave only to our monetary support of 1,500 cash, whatever we received from UMC. We gave only to people who are engaged on outsourcing basis. Yeah. So in fact, despite the contract obligations of the outsourcing agency, we did not depend even once on them for receiving PPEs or health accessories or any such sanitation hygiene things. We gave it on our own because the health of our sanitary workers was of utmost importance. And despite Warangal being a hotspot during COVID starting, none of our workers tested positive till date, touch wood. So
right. Yes.
Manvita, when I said that this is a regular type of work and why contractualization, I am telling experience of my childhood. there never used to be any contract worker. And we knew all those workers are regular workers of our municipality. And all those workers, they designated for different works, were taking care of the nearby trees, plants, etc. also, horticulture also, then the medical care also. Then coming during the season when lots of mosquitoes will come, so spray of those things in our drains and all, and then waste disposal and everything. So there was no system of outsourcing and contractualization. I am again asserting it may take a long time, but it should be our recommendation. It is a regular work. And whenever man-made or natural disasters come, then only their situation is exposed to the people. But we have to understand as a society, as a nation, as a country, we have to understand we need our healthy population, healthy environment, healthy horticulture, all around our good parks and all which municipality handles, and same way all our drains and wastage, everything to be picked up. And those people who will be doing everything for us, why they should be suffering? Are they not citizens equal to us? That's why I once again say that we have not to. It's good if Pamela says their government said we have not to discriminate between regular and the contract workers. But I am betting for in future the policy framework of the government should be that let us have them as regular workers. And then whenever any natural disaster comes or man-made disaster comes, you need extra workers. It is that time you can always have some extra workers at that time on contract basis for some time, maybe 6 months, 2 months or 1 year, up till you are over that disastrous situation. And that's why I strongly feel that all what is the good learning in this country during this period for sanitation workers, let us push it that it is projected in a better way, and we tell them that this should be the normal. Why only COVID-19? It should be normal. And for me, it is too much torturing to hear that 68% of these sanitation workers in this study told they don't have washing, cleaning, bathing facility. Then we are pushing them to COVID-19. They will become victim. They will be infected. And many of them will be suffering badly. And their immunity is already low. Their nutrition is very bad. And that's why the issues which recommendations I am giving, it is for all of us, good for all of us as a society. And that's why I once again, in answer to this question, I think all these facilities need to be extended, and we have to learn from good examples, and we have to push those good examples with the policymakers.
I have one additional follow-on question, ma'am, is when we talk of unions and getting workers together, even women are not represented well in those unions, is my belief. Can you throw a little more light on that? Are we more representation?
Yes, there is a gender gap, not only facilities being provided to women, there is a gender gap in understanding everywhere. So whatever exists in the society, generally not caring for what are the needs of women, that gets reflected in political forces, in social movements, in the trade union movements, in the farmers movement, everywhere. Because it's a question of attitude and a mindset. For centuries that mindset is made. So they themselves are also made to believe that our needs can be taken care last and let us take care of the men, because they have also been trained like that. So that kind of assertion has to come from women, of course, but then they are not able to assert, then the unions have to assert. So we always try in our unions to question them. You all men are sitting with us in this meeting. Where are the women? Are there women in your office? Are there women in the cleaning? Are they are not or not? All that we are trying to do. It's not, and it is a tough thing. You asked a very correct question. It has to be a conscious effort by the leadership in whichever section or sector or management or establishment, political forces, ruling or mass movements, wherever we are, it becomes the responsibility of those who are in the top hierarchy to push it consciously. how to have women workforce to be unionized appropriately. I give you one simple example. When these women come for meetings, these Anganwadi workers, Asha workers, or BD workers, or even these Safai workers, if they have small children, they bring children with them. It may be गोदी वाला बच्चा और it may be 2-year or 3-year-old बच्चा, और वो बच्चे जब शोर मचाएंगे ना मीटिंग में, what the men say, अरे इसको क्यों उठा लाई है, फिर मीटिंग में नहीं आना था. I am saying ICDS should be made full day. Let women have their children at safe places. So as a union leader, I will demand that from government, but as a union leader, I will not understand the problem of that woman. And why we unions, I tell them that, okay, somebody, then their man should sit at home, she is coming for meeting and take care of children. Why in our union offices also, if we know that so many women are going to come, maybe there will be 5 children or 10 children, then we see to it there is a separate place and there are some toys there and somebody sits with them and they are playing there and the woman is sitting in the meeting. So these are the things which come out of attitudes, and I think it's very important. Women issues will get neglected in sanitation if the unions are not serious enough to see to it that they are also part of unions in framing the questions and in framing the matter of demand also.
Sure. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Excellent points made. Can I now request Mr. Madhavan to conclude the session and also put his point forward? How can we take the study forward and send it to the government much more formally? Madhavanji.
Thanks very much, Mangita. I think it was great to hear Ms. Pamela Satpathy and Amarjit ji as well. So thank you both for your presentations and your contribution. I think what's very clear from the study and what's been shared in the last hour and a half is the fact that systematic discrimination, both based on caste or gender, has in some sense been worsened as a consequence of COVID. That COVID in some sense has laid bare the existing vulnerabilities that existed and has made it much worse. I think it's also very clear that what's been done in Warangal is an exception, and this is not the norm in the country. And in some sense, the steps taken by the Telangana government at large are also in some sense an exception and do not reflect the reality in other parts of the country. But I must, before I move on to other things, I must acknowledge the fact that what was very clear in the presentation made by Pamela is the fact that there was empathy, there was a recognition of the dignity of sanitation workers, there was an attention to detail that one rarely encounters, where you could sense that there was a sense, I mean, it left me with a sense of security that if you have municipal commissioners like this, we will not find sanitation workers in the state that they find themselves in. And in some sense, it filled me with a lot of hope. I think the presentation, to go back to the issue of discrimination, I think in addition to caste and gender, what the presentation also very clearly highlights is the fact that the nature of contract itself is another kind of vulnerability, which is that informal workers and contractual workers are much more vulnerable as compared to those with full-time jobs. And in some sense, we need to recognize the nature of contracts, particularly with regard to sanitation workers, as another form of vulnerability moving ahead. The stigma associated with it, particularly for informal work, particularly for those, for example, engaged in team pit latrines, and the fact that people were not willing to engage them anymore, I think was quite shocking. Within informal workers, the high proportion of women, and the fact that they have to bear the burden not just of looking after their families, but also to try and eke out a meager income for their families. The fact that shutting down of public toilets made it even harder for them during menstruation. I think the study brings out very clearly how women, particularly who are a large, almost a third of whom are engaged as informal workers, have actually suffered a lot during this. The fact that only almost a quarter of the total sanitation workers interviewed did not have access to the public distribution system, and the point that Amarjit ji made about the importance of nutrition to be able to remain healthy and safe, I think is very, very clear. And the fact is that we need to find ways or advocate for ways by which we can ensure that sanitation workers do gain access to universal public distribution system. The fact that incomes went down by a third, payments were delayed in at least 20% of cases, and that 40% of sanitation workers face challenges in meeting day-to-day expenses also reveals how thin the line is between being hungry and being able to care for your family. And COVID hasn't helped make any of this better. It was interesting that while mask use was almost 70%, hand washing was 56%, and physical distancing was nearly half, but people were still washing their hands only twice a day. So access to water, but also simply the habit of washing your hands more regularly, I think is something that we need to stress. And there's obviously been a failure in our behavioral change, information, communication, to try and communicate the importance of hand washing on a regular basis through this on. I think it is very clear that frontline workers have received a lot of adulation in the last few months. But while we have treated health professionals as frontline workers, we've disregarded sanitation workers who are an important part of public health and have not treated them with the same respect and dignity that other health professionals have received. And I think that's an important, sobering learning for us. I think it is also tragic, and go back to the point that was made about balancing comfort and safety. And it's ironic that even in this day and age, we've not been able to design appropriate protective equipment and safety gear that can be used in a subtropical climate by people engaged in sanitation work. The fact that people have to remove their boots, have to remove their gloves, are unable to work with PPE is a reflection of the fact that we've not been able to create or invest in appropriate material for them to use. I think one of the points that Meghna made early on when she was sharing some of the findings of the study was about the fact that sanitation workers do what they do by choice, and not by choice, but because of other compulsions. Whether those compulsions are related to caste or whether they're actually a function of their economic necessity. I think the compulsion and the absence of other choices or opportunities in some sense makes them vulnerable and prone to constant with a cycle of vulnerability being perpetuated across generations. I think it's very clear that we need to look at the contract system. We need to look at how do you encourage greater formalization of this workforce. And even if you have contracts, how can you ensure that the contracts adequately cover issues around safety, social security, and that you can actually enforce them. If Telangana could ensure that 5,000 rupees was made available to sanitation workers, then for them the next step should be to look at how do you ensure that your contractors can provide them with health insurance, with social security for longer term. And I think it's possible to do that, but we need to look at what is there in those contracts. How do we ensure that social security is embedded as part of those contracts that are entered to in sanitation workers, if complete formalization in terms of their becoming regular government workers is not possible. I think one of the tragedies of sanitation workers is the fact that while we talk about the importance of technology, about using technology to reduce risk to life, to improve health and safety of sanitation workers, the tragedy is that as long as the cheap labor exists, and as long as you have labor who belong to a particular caste, who do not have any other option, the incentives to invest in technology do not exist for municipalities. And whenever you will have access to cheap labor, they will tend to choose cheap labor rather than making investments in technology. And I think that's one of our tragedies, which is that the fact that you have cheap labor available is reducing the incentives for municipalities to invest in technology that can save lives. I think we talked about the importance of, in one of the recommendations, was about collectivization of sanitation workers, and also about the need for enterprises that are owned and managed by sanitation workers. I think it is important for us to recognize that creating enterprises that are owned and managed by sanitation workers will allow them to make this transition from being just mere labor to actually owners of capital. So even if sanitation workers, a collective of sanitation workers can own their own desludging truck, they will become owners of capital. And that will change their relationship with the municipality and will also change perceptions of people with regard to them. I would like to thank, in the end, Amarjit ji and the Municipal Commissioner for Warangal, Ms. Pamela Satpathy. I think both their comments as well as what they shared was very, very useful. I want to thank Meghna and Kanika and the teams at both UMC and WaterAid, and our partners who actually helped in undertaking this study in a very, very short span of time. And I want to finally thank Manvita as well as Raman for inviting all of us, for organizing this. And hopefully the fact that the study is being done will give us now an opportunity, some more information to continue to work with municipalities and state governments to help improve the life, well-being and safety of sanitation workers in this country. So thank you very much. And finally, I wish to thank the 109 participants who have stayed on and have heard us all very patiently. So thank you all. And please stay safe. Anita, I think you're on mute. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Good health to all.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, Raman, I recognize you. Okay, Manita ji.
Bye-bye. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you, Amarjit ji, Pamela ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.